Yeah, good to know. We do record this meeting for the purpose of people who could not participate and who might want to look at the video later. So Alessandro Zattoni is the president of EURAM, and we'll talk a little bit about the whole governance structure, which is a little bit complicated. Then Andrew will take over and talk about the conference itself more. He's the conference organizer in Dublin. And then Vivek will talk about the structure of the conference and how to find your way in the conference. And then there's time for a Q&A, and hopefully, we'll be able to answer as many questions as possible. Okay, maybe the next one, Louisa. Okay, I already mentioned this, so I'll talk a little bit more about the structure. So EURAM is a scholarly association and organized as a non-profit organization under Belgian law. In 2001, so we're a young organization, we're still in our first millennium. And our mission is, as you can imagine, to form a professional community of management scholars, engaged management scholars, and also reflective practitioners. And to be honest, that part is still a little bit more difficult. So if anyone has, a brilliant idea about how we can involve practitioners more in our association, I think we would be very open to that. Because it is based in Europe, of course, we are international, we are cross-cultural, and we also aim to be and do everything what we can to be open and inclusive. It's an individual membership society, so we do not have institutional members. So a university cannot become a member of EURAM. We might look into that in the future, but at this time, it is purely individual membership based. We have a special rate for PhD students, and we have a special rate if you become a member for multiple years. So that is something to consider. Also important to note is that we are a volunteer organization. We have 2 staff members in Brussels who are paid, but all the other people who, do all kinds of tasks within or for EURAM do so on a volunteer basis. Next one, please, Louisa. Yeah, so as many associations of our type, we've gone through some difficult times. So in 2020, we still had 2,040 members. 2020 was the first COVID year, obviously, and we experienced the effects of that with a year delay because people coming to the conference in 2020 become member for 2021. So in 2021, we had a quite drastic drop in membership numbers, and that has slowly been recovering since then. But we're still not completely back to where we once were. If you look at the composition of the membership base, you can see that it's clearly dominated by Europeans. And that has actually become a little bit stronger after the COVID pandemic, probably because of travel restrictions that were a little bit less within Europe than between Europe and the US. Then, please, the next one. Okay, just a few words about governance and communities. So as I already mentioned, I'm the chair of the board. That is a position that is directly elected by the members. And the board consists of a number of members. The president is always a member of the board. The president is also directly elected by the members. Then we have the vice president for finance and governance. We have 2 representatives from the Council of Country Representatives. We have 2 representatives from the strategic interest groups, and we have the Dean of the College of Fellows. All these bodies I will still, talk a little bit about. So that's the board. The board oversees all activities, and then is responsible to the General Assembly. We didn't put the General Assembly here, but the General Assembly normally takes place at the conference. live. We will also have an online General Assembly this year because we need to approve some changes in the statutes, and we need to do that in 2 steps. For the General Assembly, that is all the members who take the trouble to come to that meeting, they are in charge. They can tell the board and they can tell the executive committee that we are not pleased with what you're doing. You should do it in a different way. So then, apart from the board, we have the executive committee, which is more the daily leadership of the association. This is chaired by the president, as I said, someone who is directly elected by the members. The president then appoints a number of vice presidents for specific tasks. And there are also some that specific tasks can be research funding, it can be engagements of practitioners, it can be finance and governance, as I already mentioned. And then there are also a number of people who are ex officio member of the executive committee. These are the editors of the European Management Review. European Management Review is the journal of the association. And we have the conference organizer, who is ex officio also a member of the executive committee. The next one is the College of Fellows. This is a rather new thing. So we have a number of fellows, I think at this moment about 20 or 24. All people who have in the past and still played important roles in the association and are also good researchers and educators, and they help the association to keep course. They give advice to the board and the executive committee, and they fulfill all kinds of tasks for the association. Then the country representatives in every country where we have at least 10 members, we organize an election, and that means that we will have a chosen representative for that country. All the country representatives together form a council, and that council chooses 2 country representatives to be members of the board. The strategic interest groups, that is in a way, without doing, without belittling the task of all the other bodies, I would say the strategic interest groups are maybe the most important ones, because they organize a large part of the contents of the conference. Of course, the local organizer is very important, but the strategic interest groups in their fields, you can compare them a little bit with the divisions in the American Academy of Management. So we have strategic interest groups in different fields: project management, strategic management, business and society, you name it. And they organize the contents of the conference in that particular field. The strategic interest groups self-organize, so they have their own, elections for a chair of the strategic interest group. And if you would be interested in becoming involved in, play an active role within EURAM, I think the strategic interest group might be a very good place to start, because I know that many of those are really keen in finding active members who are willing to help them with this huge task of organizing the papers and the sessions, etc. Then we have a scientific council, again about 20 members, who do also play an important role for us, because they do the awards and grants committees. So we have a number of awards which are granted during the annual conference, and we have the juries that are formed from the members of the scientific council. And then we have the ethics committee. Last but not least, these are 3 EURAM members of very long standing that will come in action when there is unethical behavior somewhere in or around the association. So hopefully they will have very little work, but you need to have such a committee, just in case. So let me, stop here if there's any question regarding this particular part. then we could try to answer that, or we could do it at the end. What do you propose, Louisa?
I'm here. I just said that they could put their questions.
Yeah, ciao.
Okay, yeah.
Here's one. Somebody asking if you could succinctly describe what the EURAM mission is. Shall I put the slide back? Maybe it's somebody who missed the beginning.
Okay.
I'll go backwards.
Yeah. So, like most scholarly associations, we want to be a professional community of people doing management research in a broad sense. And we also really hope to be an association of people who do more than just, you know, ivory tower management research. Therefore we added the engaged label, engaged management scholars, people who also want to help organizations and societies to change for the better. Reflective practitioners, so practitioners who are willing to think about how they operate in their daily tasks. We would like to see more of those, actually. Open and inclusive, international and cross-cultural. And a more, I think, complete text can be found on the website. Yeah, so maybe you know, it's better if we continue now. And let me just make one additional remark. So I didn't introduce Louisa and Nicola. Louisa and Nicola are the two people staffing the office in Brussels. And so they actually, you know, are the backbone, you could say, of the association. Okay. Maybe go to the next one, Louisa. Then I hand over to my colleague and friend, Alessandro.
Thank you, Niels, for the introduction. And I saw a question I can address. So basically, our meeting point is the annual conference. So this is why we are happy today to introduce the society on the operation, because you can find maybe easier to interact with your colleague during the conference and join the activities that we will perform there. So at the conference, you can interact with the SIGs, you can meet the SIGs representative, you can see the country representative. All information are also on the website. You can download the annual report, but you know, it's important that you know the people you meet and you interact with them. So the next conference will be in Dublin. You will listen from Andrew in a few minutes. It's really a great pleasure to announce that this is a great success. So thank you to Andrew and all people from EURAM that have been involved in organizing this. So we will have more than 1,800 delegates. We will have more than 1,300 papers presented, 41 symposia, and more than 500 sessions. Usually the conference is our main event, and you can meet the editors like in any other event. You can have guest speakers, you can have keynotes, you can have a specific session that we will organize during the conference, like the labs with practitioners. So for me will be 1 week, because there will be the doctoral colloquium, the labs, and the conference. The conference is organized basically in 2 days, but then Andrew will explain. The conference is the meeting place, and is a place where we like to attend and to meet every year. Then we have a doctoral colloquium that typically we organize before the conference. It's 2 days. We have about 78 PhDs. There are a lot of mentors that are typically senior scholars from EURAM that will help the PhD to develop their career, their programs, their products, their papers, and their competencies. And then we organize also a EURAM Early Career Consortium. This is for people after the PhD in the early career phase. We know that it's not an easy phase. Typically, the Early Career Consortium is organized once per year outside of the conference. We take a couple of days off and we go in a place. This year was in Dansk. And then here again, like in the PhD, you have senior colleagues and junior colleagues, and they work together, they interact just with, I would say, with passion and generosity. So if you want to know what is EURAM, I think the real spirit of EURAM is scholar, senior, and mid-career that are engaged and try to develop junior scholar in management. This is the spirit. Maybe you can breath this spirit at the conference, at the doctoral colloquium, or the EECC. Luisa, for me, we can proceed. I don't know if there is any question. Anyway, Luisa, there is any question? I don't see the chat. If there is, I can take it.
No, there are some questions about the doctoral colloquium. We will pick them up and answer to those individuals afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Luisa. I can proceed. So as EURAM, we organize a lot of events, and during the conference, we have also our ceremony for the award. Basically, we want to recognize EURAM members that did a great success in different fields. They are proposing new research project, and this is the purpose of the EURAM grant scheme. The society provide up to 5,000 euro per project, and the total 25,000 euro. And we receive, typically is very competitive, so we receive a large number of applications, and the Scientific Council, as explained before by Niels, is involved in assessing and taking the most objective decision about this proposal. And this is clearly something good, because we want to give back to our member the possibility to research and fund their future research. Second is a best book award. Here is again a competitive. You can, if you have a new book recently published, you can submit the book to be assessed. Still, the Scientific Council organize a different team from the previous one, and they will read the books and they will give their assessment, and then one will receive the prize that you can see indicated, so 2,500. Then we have probably one very prestigious award that is a EURAM Edith Penrose Awards. I assume you are familiar with Edith Penrose, was basically the founder of Resource-Based View. And basically this is an award for excellent senior trailblazing scholars. Last year, we assigned the award to 2 colleagues, and the 2 colleagues typically will have their keynote speech. They present their own field, their own research, their own impact on the field at the next conference. So you are welcome to join them and to applaud and listen about their contribution to management scholarship. Then we have the Conference Award. The Conference Award are about the best and most inspirational papers and the best reviewer. Clearly, a conference is very competitive, as you know, so we have some rejection also to be accepted, but then we want to also give a kind of recognition to the best and most inspirational paper, just to induce all our members to do their best to present their work at the conference. Joel, can you please turn on the microphone? Off the microphone, thank you. And then we have also a Best Reviewer Award. As you can imagine, I guess you have been involved in reviewing some other works. It's a lot of work, it's free time, but we think this is quite important, and it's good to also to recognize our members that are really involved and provide a lot of value to our colleagues. And as Niels emphasized also before, it's quite important that you attend the General Assembly. The General Assembly is, we will present you with what happened, what the board and the executive committee have done the previous year. We will bring some decision for you. It's quite important so that you can be aligned with what is going on in the society. And this is a formal event, because we are a society that are clearly formally incorporated in Luxembourg, in Brussels, and so we need to clearly follow the law, and we need to have some procedure that you can find while described in our statute and bylaw. The statute and bylaw, you can find the governance section in our website. So please, if you want to know a bit more about the rules and the processes, you can find all the information on the website. Luisa, we can go to the next one. Okay, as any other academic society, also EURAM has a journal. Our journal is called AMR, European Management Review. As you can see from the cover, this is a very special year for the journal. There is a 20 because it's the 20th anniversary of the journal. The journal provides also awards as a best paper, as a best reviewer award. Is a journal that is acknowledged in the field of management, and we have 2 new editors that are working very hard. The journal is published by Wiley, as you can see. So I assume you will consider AMR in the future for your publication. I assume you will serve as a reviewer, and eventually one day also you may become an editor, an associate editor of the journal. We provide and we create a dialogue with our member also through 4 EURAM newsletters. So they are quarterly newsletter. Basically, members can share news about conferences, about workshops they organize, different activities. You can find several of this information in the newsletter. Typically, we present you some activities that we are going on. We call for a contribution, we call for involvement, and this is, you know, a continuous dialogue that happens between the society and its member. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have also an annual report. Is a kind of legal document where you can find also financials, you can find a summary of the activities performed by SIGs. You can find different vice presidents presenting their work and their contribution to the society. So maybe for people that join the society could be very informative because you can see the activities, the structure, and all the people that are involved. We have a EURAM e-job market. Basically, you can find also a section on our website where you can advertise position for candidates, and then you can collect the curriculum and eventually find the professor to fill the position that you have open at your university. And then we have a EURAM e-directory for members. So basically, you can find other members and you can connect with other members. Clearly, as any other academic society, we are open, collaborative, and so feel free to send an email to colleagues that you want to connect with, maybe the SIG chair where you want to belong to, and eventually ask for, you know, how you can contribute, how can you be involved with the society. So I assume the next conference for you will be a great experience, and this is why we organize this virtual event to make it more efficient and practical for you. I think I finish here. I don't know if there is any comment or question.
Shall we move to Andrew's presentation?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you, Alessandra, and also thank you, Niels. And everyone, we're absolutely looking forward to hosting you here in Dublin. We were due to host this conference in 2020, but unfortunately, COVID got in the way. Well, now I can show you. I know it's only a small part of the screen, but the sun is out in Dublin, and yeah, we're looking forward to welcoming you to, which will hopefully still be sunny Dublin in a few weeks' time. Now, the conference theme is around the theme of transforming business for good. And I suppose that's really around the ambition, really, of business making a positive impact on humanity and indeed the planet and society generally. Historically, I suppose, as economic progress has occurred, it's, you know, done what Adam Smith said it would do all along, is it most boats, you know, benefit with economic progress. But recently, some of the limits of that are being encountered. It's becoming more tricky. There's more winner takes all markets. We're realizing that all along we hadn't really been addressing the externalities from on the environment to the point of threatening the existence of the planet with climate change. And also, we've become a much more of a global community, a global village. And while in the past we could actually, you know, almost oversee our supply chains, now they've become dispersed, both, you know, geographically and digitally and so on. And hence, it's been the bigger challenge, therefore, in terms of ensuring that those supply chains are beneficial for humanity? Are they respecting human rights? Are they ethical? What's their carbon footprint, and so on. So there's some really big challenges that are facing business at the moment, and the conference team is pulling many of those challenges together, and hopefully we can provide some value added that we can take back to our classrooms, that we can engage with business, we can engage with policymakers, and help to make the world a better place from doing business. And I suppose that's really the key to getting more practitioners, I think, involved in EURAM. The more relevant we are, the better. So if I may go on to the next slide, then. So we will begin the conference. We'll have a number of keynote speakers. But the first keynote speaker is Mary Robinson. She's the former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. She was the first female president of Ireland. She's current chair of the Elders. It's a group of, powerful leaders around the world, some from politics. She was proposed by Kofi Annan. Other people like Bill Gates, Richard Branson are part of the Elders. And she's an adjunct professor here in Trinity Business School for climate justice. And so she will give an open address, not just addressing eco-sustainability, but importantly, the issue of climate justice. If we're to address this, then we need to do it in a way where it's inclusive and socially sustainable. So that's a key topic. And then our next keynote speaker is David Thies. I think many of you know David Thies from Dynamic Capabilities. It's interesting that the EURAM has a tradition of having prizes for Edith Penrose with the resource-based view of the firm. And of course, David Thies was the international academic to take that to the next level and say that in addition to the human and physical and social capital networks that are resources that businesses have, there's also the key thing about dynamic capabilities, and in terms of their agility and ability to innovate and evolve. And if you can stay with that slide just for the moment. So David Thies is going to talk a little bit about dynamic capabilities, but he's going to talk about it in the context of businesses thinking long term. And I suppose the essence there really is that the more long term we think, and the more businesses are aligned to long-term performance as opposed to short-term performance, then these eco-sustainable issues come into play more strongly. The type of society we want to live in come into play more strongly. And that's going to be one of the major themes. So he links up with our conference, but he will be talking about dynamic capabilities as well. So
ask me about Unipark.
Sorry, was next slide then. Then we have the last year was it was two winners of the Edith Penrose Prize. So Anna Grandori and Giovanni Dossi. So there must have been an Italian committee or something. I'm only joking. With two Italian winners, but no, well done to them, and they will be doing a joint keynotes, and will be the third set of keynotes at the conference. So I'll keep the next slide. So don't worry, we're not expecting you to read through this slide, but just shows you really that there's 5 days. Days 1 and 2 are typically around the doctoral colloquium, but on the Tuesday we have a welcome reception, and that will take place in the dining hall in Trinity College Dublin. It's a lovely old university where we're well over 400 years old. It's a lovely historic dining hall, and we'll have some refreshments there, and a bit of traditional music as well. And so I think hopefully you'll be able to make that event. And then the conference proper will kick off on Wednesday morning with the SIGs and so on. And then we link up together around about lunchtime, just after lunch, in terms of the opening of the conference. And that's when we'll have the opening of the conference, with welcome from the president of EURAM, welcome for the dean of the business school here in Trinity College Dublin, and also our keynote address from Mary Robinson. And then the conference moves on in day 2. That's when David Teese will talk. Day 3, the other keynotes and the plenaries and the SIGs, all that take place there. And then finally on day 5, we have the gala dinner. If you haven't signed up to the gala dinner, I'd encourage you to do so. That's not because we're trying to sell tickets. We're not. It's going to sell out anyway. But really, it's in the Guinness Storehouse, so it's one of the tourist attractions in the city anyway. You get to see the storehouse, and also there's the lovely what's the word? I was going to say rooftop, but there's a lovely bar at the top, a rotating a bar where you get a panoramic view of the city.
The Gravity Bar.
Gravity Bar, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Una, for helping us out. And of course, just while I take you, of course, all of this conference program and all these activities really wouldn't occur without, I suppose, 3 broad groups. We've got first and foremost, the academic community of EURAM, all the SIG chairs, everybody involved in running plenaries, and ultimately you all submitting papers and so on. So thank you, everybody. Also then the wonderful team at EURAM, and particularly a call out to Louisa, and then also the team here, the local organization team here in Trinity. And I think we have 2 people involved, Una Hennigan, the conference manager, and Sarah McLaughlin, I think, are on the call here. But a lot of the academics in Trinity played a role in, and the PhD students, in organizing the initial reviews of papers or initial desk reviews of papers, I hasten to add, and so on. So thanks to everybody there. Next slide then is really my last slide, and just simply to say that, I know we have lots to see in Ireland, and there's lots of information on the website about that, but there's also a lot of touristy things right on the doorstep here. Trinity College Dublin is located absolutely in the centre of the city, so it's an unusual campus in that it's not on out in the suburbs. I mean, you're right in the centre of Dublin City. It's a lovely old historic campus. It was in Lonely Planet's. It was the only university campus in Lonely Planet's top 500 places in the world to see. It's a beautiful campus. So take part in the tours around the campus. See it. That's the Campanile. Also, if you haven't done it already, please. On the bottom left of the screen there is the long room library. That is absolutely breathtaking to see that. So you have a discount voucher. I'd use it. I don't know if there's any. I know a lot of you have booked places. There's only limited capacity, so if I'd encourage that. Then you've got a lot of the SIG events will take place around the city. That's just a picture of Grafton Street there. Nothing too unusual, but but there's lots of bars and restaurants. And on the right hand side of my screen there, you've got the Temple Bar, and there's a lot of traditional Irish music played down there, and so on. So you can get a lot of that experience. But the other 3 pictures on the side is that if you jump on the local DART metro, essentially in Dublin, that's the DART line, you can just in a few stops go and see some spectacular places. So on the bottom left is Howth. You could go out to Howth and you could go for a climb over Howth Hill. And then on the top in the middle is a lovely shot of Killiney Bay. I think, well, yeah, it's a lovely. If you're on the DART, it goes around Killiney. You get to see out in the bay. It's an absolutely spectacular view. You can stop there, walk on the beach. There's a lovely coffee shop there. You can go back in the DART and come home, or you could walk up onto Killiney Hill and see a panoramic view of the whole of the city out to the ocean and the mountains as well. It's so if you fancy a good half-hour walk and then back to the train station, that's great. So that's all on your doors. And then the middle one there is the bottom lower is Malahide Castle. So lots on your doorstep. So we can't wait to welcome you here. We're really looking forward to meeting you all, and wish you a fantastic conference, both professionally and socially, and of course networking. So we're looking forward to making lots of new friends. So thank you. I'll hand back to Niels and Alessandro.
Thank you. You hear me? Okay,
Yes, we
good.
hear you.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. My name is Vivek. I'm from India, originally based now in Leipzig, Germany. I was the past Innovation SIG chair. I've been to every EURAM since 2008, Slovenia, right? 9 I was, I think, in Liverpool. 10 was Rome, 11 was Tallinn. So I've been an old EURAM member. And today's presentation really, from my side, is to help you better navigate the EURAM conference as a newcomer. Okay, so let me just get into it. Next slide, please. First thing I think Niels mentioned before is that the most important aspect or organization of EURAM are the SIGs. We have, just jump to the next slide, that's enough. What happens is that all management topics are broken down into 13 SIGs at EURAM. So I'm sure you will notice that all of you belong to one SIG. Your paper most likely is in a track, and this track is connected to one SIG, in some cases, 2 SIGs, right? So basically, the topics are broken down in different divisions, as we say at Academy of Management. What you also notice here is that your marketing colleagues are not here, your finance colleagues are not here. This is a management conference. Those communities, information system, they have their own conferences. Okay, so we are at EURAM. These are the SIGs. What does it actually mean, a SIG? And how is it broken down? I would jump forward. On the left side, you see some numbers, right? SIG 01, SIG 02. These are the numbers. And at EURAM, when you look at the different tracks and different symposia, you'll see there's always a number in the front. Everything is named S01, 06, and this number signifies which SIG that program point is connected to. Okay, this is just to navigate. Let's jump forward. What we have at EURAM are different tracks. There'll be, again, a bit of confusion. There will be something called general tracks versus topic specific tracks. Every SIG is broken down into one, typically has one general track and many topic specific tracks, right? And typically, I'm sure some of you are confused that you have submitted a paper to a specific track and the track is no more there in the program, right? What typically happens is that we merge papers, we put them to different tracks, and it's possible if a specific track receives less submissions, then the track has been merged in the general track. So don't get worried if your track is missing. You're very much in the program. This is just to tell you. I've often noticed people are very confused. My track is gone. It's there. Exactly. Second part we have at EURAM, other than tracks, and tracks are again broken down into competitive sessions and development sessions. Somebody mentioned, I think Kanishka was asking this question, what does it mean to be in a competitive session versus development session? You can understand competitive sessions as papers which are better developed or at the final stages, and papers which are going to development session are in the early stages. Okay, that's the fundamental difference. It's possible that the sessions are organized slightly differently, but effectively, that is how we differentiate. Okay, does it mean competitive sessions are more cutthroat? No, that's not the case. Okay, we just believe the paper is more developed, and whereas development, more feedback needs to be given. That's how we differentiate. Second thing we have are called symposium. We have 41 this year, right? Symposia can be workshops, can be panel discussions, can be interactive sessions where scholars meet on specific topics. And these symposia, 41 symposia are broken down, are in different SIGs, and you'll have many different topics. You can have a look at the range, and I would strongly recommend go to the symposia, find one or two symposium you like, and go there. Finally, we have labs. We have 6 of them this year. I understand labs as something which is more interactive and more specific, and we have 6 of them this year, right? Normally, typically labs are on new topics, cutting edge topics, where you can interact and you can get to know on the subject. Let me move forward. Next slide. Then you'll also note there's a lot of jargon going around at EURAM, right? There are SIG kickoffs, there are the SIG plenary, the SIG social events. So typically, as we mentioned before, each SIG is self-organized. Every SIG has a SIG kickoff, which typically happens on Wednesday morning. So if you want to understand your SIG better, you should go to the SIG kickoff, which is happening on Wednesdays, and understand what tracks are there, who are the key members, and that's the kickoff. Then there's a SIG plenary. The SIG plenary is a meeting which takes place either typically on a Thursday or a Friday. This is where management decisions regarding the SIG are taken. Elections are done there. New tracks are proposed there. New topics are discussed there. How can the SIG be more engaging? This is where you can volunteer, talk to the SIG chairs, and say, I would like to do more. Where can I contribute? Then we of course have a SIG social event, which typically happens on Thursday evenings. This is happening on Thursday evenings. This is a SIG get together in a bar or a restaurant. Typically, every SIG gives out awards for the best papers. We also have awards at the SIG level. So obviously, Andrew talked about best paper at the EURAM conference level, but we typically all SIGs also organize best papers at the SIG level, and these awards are given out at the social evening. Then we have SIG wrap-ups. Some SIGs do that, not all SIGs need that. And basically a SIG wrap-up, you can again meet, which is typically happening on Friday afternoon, where you can talk about your experience and what things you would like to improve. You can give feedback to your SIGs. What would you like? What it's more like a wrap-up of the whole conference and what needs to be improved. Finally, there are also SIG hangouts, which are happening every evening after our hangout, so to say, right? So once the conference ends at 5 or 6, before you go home, there's a bar, you go and meet there, hang out a bit, get to know people. So it's another networking opportunity. And obviously on Friday evening is the SIG gala dinner, what Andrew mentioned in the Guinness House. I would strongly recommend come there, and I'm sure there'll be a good party. Okay, so these are the SIG events. So for all the newcomers, definitely go to the SIG kickoff. And there again, they will repeat this information and they'll help you navigate through your SIG. Every SIG runs differently, so go to the kickoff. Okay, let's move forward one slide. Okay, here comes the more interesting part to explain. You're an academic conference, right? And one thing we need to understand is that, and I think a couple of times Niels mentioned we are a scholarly association, right? Of course, we're intellectual people. I'm not saying we are not intellectuals, but fundamental difference between intellectuals and scholars is that intellectuals seek knowledge which is based on individual interest, where scholars are people who are interacting with other scholars to increase publicly available knowledge. That is what we are doing at EURAM. We are publishing papers. We're trying to increase knowledge which is publicly available. We are all scholars. We are learning from each other. We are building on each other. This is a fundamental thing we need to understand. Moving forward. Here are 3 words I would like to talk about. First thing I mentioned is that, so scholarship is about attaining knowledge by informing yourself through the activities of other scholars. And we are scholars because we study in a specific branch. The most interesting metaphor is a conversation. End of the day, it is an iterative process. And that is how management knowledge moves forward, right? Somebody says this, somebody replies to that and builds on that information and adds more knowledge. Just the way Andrew mentioned that you had the resource-based view of Jebani, and then dynamic capabilities builds on it and says, that's very nice, you're human, you have resources, but there's something even more important, or there's something else, not more important, something else which needs to be considered, which is dynamic capabilities, which is about the ability to learn, adapt, use networks, right? It builds on resource-based view. That is how management knowledge moves forward, right? So we're all having conversations. And that is something we need to understand, that you want to get into conversations with more people at the conference. And I would move to the next slide. Right. And in a conversation, when you have with people, you can also understand that 2 basic things happening, right? you're basically making sense of what you see at the conference. You go to a conference presentation, somebody presents a paper, you're identifying their expressions and you're trying to make sense in your head. Oh, that makes sense. I have seen something like this in my own company. Yeah, that makes sense. When this and this happens, right? So you're making sense of a presentation. And the second aspect you do when you write a paper as a scholar is you give sense. You write a paper because you've made sense and you're trying to give out something and you want to say, based on what I've learned, I think this is what makes sense. And why don't you look at this, understand? This is what I understand is really happened, right? This is a process. And I'll show you just go to the next slide, then you will notice it. So effectively, as a scholar, we are in a continuous cycle, right? You're making sense. You go to on the left side, you go to an academic presentation and you make a presentation, you make sense of information and you write a paper, people come listen to that paper, right? And you're giving cues to them. They're taking that input, they're looking at the gaps, they're going home, thinking about it and writing another research paper because they're again trying to give sense. It's a continuous process what's happening, right? Does it make sense? And if you notice in management literature, we always cite each other, right? The whole argument is built on A said this, B said this, so C must be the case. This is how management research is done. And that's what we are doing, right? So this is the process. And especially for young scholars, just go to the next slide. You can ask yourself in the sense-making, sense-giving circle of scholarship, you can ask yourself, when you go to a presentation, you can ask yourself, what are you agreeing to in this presentation? What are the aspects you agree to, and what are the aspects you're disagreeing to, right? So it's important. And you should disagree sometimes, right? Otherwise, you're not really moving stuff forward. And you're also looking at what are the knowledge gaps, right? Similarly, when you make a presentation as an individual scholar, you want more people to follow your paper, right? So you want to make your paper more attractive, right? And also focus on your contribution, right? So you want to make sure your paper is as interesting as possible for other people to follow, right? And this is the circle of scholarship, right? The more interactions you get into, the more people you talk to, and the more feedback you get, the more you interact, the better is the result. Okay, I just jump one slide here. I would like to say, based on these aspects of conversation as a metaphor, I would like to say a few things. I mean, there were some questions coming up, right? You want to talk to people. That basically means you should be in your presentation. EURAM says 15 minutes. I strongly recommend keep a presentation to 10 minutes. If you speak for 10 minutes, you have another 20 minutes to have a conversation on feedback, right? So keep the presentation short. Make it interesting as much as possible. Add a few colorful pictures if required. Do not try to give all your results out. If you have 6 hypotheses in your paper, don't mention all the 6 because then you would need more than 15 minutes to talk about it. Focus on the most interesting one. Focus on the one which is the aha effect. Leave the other ones. And typically you will notice many are boring. There's 1 or 2 which are really interesting. Focus on them. If you're doing qualitative research and you've got a lot of content, focus, show the overall findings, but focus only on one finding, go into depth with examples, and the other ones you say these are there, you can talk about in the discussion. If you invest time in showing all your results, then there will be no time for a conversation. There will be no time for a feedback. Please remember, you're coming to EURAM to get feedback and talk to people. So make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to get feedback. And here comes the next point. Don't be defensive as a young scholar, right? I understand a PhD project is your intellectual baby, is your paper. So people get very personal. If people get attacked, please remember, this is not your human baby. It's still a paper, okay? So don't get worked up about it. Okay, that's very important. Don't be defensive. It doesn't help. And also is another argument I often hear from young scholars. They always say, but my paper is more complicated and it's got a lot more information. I need more time. And here is my answer. Yes, please simplify the paper and focus on the most interesting results. Do not believe your paper is most complicated. No paper is more complicated than others, right? Try to keep a message clear, simple, and don't get lost in details. So this is the tips on presentation. The next thing I want to talk about is culture, right? EURAM is a constructive society in terms of your constructive feedback, right? It's an open environment. As a young scholar, when I came in 2008 to EURAM, to Slovenia, I remember the same year I had gone to another conference, another European conference, and it was the same paper, different versions presented at both the conferences, getting feedback. And I distinctly recollect at the other conference, I was attacked really badly, randomly. I had no idea. I was a young scholar and I was just talking something. Of course, I was not on the top of things, but I was really attacked. At EURAM, people did not attack me. They did not laugh at me. They laughed with me. That was the fundamental difference, right? It was constructive. I felt welcome. And that's the reason I'm at EURAM every year for the last 16 years, right? I started actively working as a member. Then I worked at the SIG level. I ran tracks. I was a SIG chair. I just finished my SIG chair term last year. I was running the SIG Innovation SIG for 3 years. I've handed it over. So the culture is something which attracts me. And that's the reason I'm also here and I'm not paid for it. Most of us in this room are not paid, right? We do it because we like the association, right? And that is something we're very proud at EURAM. And the last thing I would like to say really is about how to prepare for the conference. I talked about the SIGs, I talked about panel. Look at your program and identify which tracks, which papers, which symposia you want to join. Chalk out a plan and follow that. That's one thing you do. So invest an hour, go through the tracks, see what is there, look at the program and see what do you want to attend, right? Do not choose papers or sessions to attend because your friend is presenting there. You can listen to your friend later, right? So choose papers based on topics, not on friends and loyalties, because he came to my room, I'll go to his room. No, that's pointless, okay? So think about it like that. Second thing I would say is make a small elevator pitch about your research. I recollect in 2008, I was in Slovenia. I was a one-year scholar. I was with John Besant, and John introduced me to another scholar from England, from Cranfield. And it was somebody I was citing regularly in my research paper. And I was shaking hands with this gentleman, and I was overwhelmed, and I did not use the opportunity to actually converse with him about my research or talk to him about his research. I was just overwhelmed. I was not prepared for the unexpected meeting, right? So learn from a mistake, make a small elevator pitch to really, in 1 minute, to describe what are you doing, what is interesting, and what you're trying to contribute. Just practice that once, okay? And secondly, I would say when you make a presentation, do time it once and do make the presentation in front of your colleagues. I'm sure you know other PhD students who are coming there, present in front of each other, get a practice round, get feedback on what aspects of the presentation are redundant, what aspects should be focused on. Just practice it once, and that makes a huge difference on your presentation at the conference. One round of practice, I strongly recommend, especially for the ones who are doing it for everybody, right? Even though you're the most experienced guy in the world or lady in the world, I think you should practice once, okay? That would be my last point of feedback. Finally, I would like to say is that if you want to actively take part at EURAM, the best way to start is go to your track chair and say that I would like to actively take part. And the best way to start is to be an active reviewer for the next year's conference. That's the first thing you do. That's the first step in the process, right? This is what I did. I reviewed papers actively, right? So this is how you get into things. 2 years down the line, if you are finishing your PhD, you're an advanced scholar, you're coming to the EURAM for the first time, and you're focused on academic career, then talk to the chair or the topic you're interested in, ask him or her if you could become a co-chair. EURAM is very welcoming. We do not own topics here, right? It's not that I own a topic and I don't let other people in. We don't do that. So we want younger people coming in. We want newer people coming in. And you will notice that is something which distinguishes us as a society compared to other academic societies. We don't own stuff, we share stuff. Okay. So with that, I would say, I hope all of you have a great time at EURAM. Go to the social events, interact with us, and I'm sure it will be a good conference. And Dublin is a great place. I know that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vivek. We've come to the end of the presentations, but if there are still questions that have not been answered in the chats, this is the moment that you could still do that. I suggest you can either, write it in the chat, or if it's a more general question that might also be interesting for other people, you can also unmute yourself and ask it here and now. I think most questions are of a little bit more of an operational nature and have been dealt with already by the EURAM staff, Louisa and Nicola. So if that is the case, and I see a lot of people already saying goodbye, I think we could close this session and thanking the participants, all the participants, as well as the speakers and the organizers. And, we will all meet each other in Dublin and, hopefully drink a glass together or a cup of coffee. And I'm really looking forward to that. And hopefully you will do the same. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, we can end now, Louisa.
Okay, and people are most welcome to write to us if they have specific questions as well. info@euram.academy.
Okay, yeah, and have a good look at the EURAM website also. So there's a lot of information there. Also very practical information. Okay, good. Then I wish all of you a wonderful day. For some, that's still a lot of time. For others, it's already a bit later. And see you in Dublin.
Okay, thank you all. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.